Hey there, I'm Jonathan Sargent, supposedly, and welcome to innerVIVID and our fifth theme called Tomorrow. I mean, this theme is the fifth theme, but it's the first one called Tomorrow. Confused? Yeah, me too. We're making this on the lands of the Yagara and Turrbal people, lands never ceded. Now, this video is all about the ideas of fate and destiny, but in a specific direction. I often move in what you would call faith circles, and I hear people talk about how things that happen to them are supposed to happen, and it's all part of a plan. In fact, I hear people say that in circles that are not faith circles too. Non-faith circles? The difference is, in faith circles, they might attribute this plannedness to some kind of higher power, I guess. That might raise your eyebrows. So here's the question.
Do you believe that there is a plan for everyone? How does that help?
Now, there's plans and there's plans. You know, detailed paths for your individual life or more general life trajectories for everyone or specific groups maybe. Or what? What do our IV experts think?
Do I believe that there's a plan for everyone? No, I don't. I think we make it up as we go along. We encounter other people in different situations and we respond to the people who are in front of us, and that becomes our plan, which I find really comforting, actually, that all I have to do is pay attention to what's in front of me. I don't have to worry about the next 40 years or even the next 10 years. All I have to worry about is right now. I think that's a gift, actually. I would hate to think that everything was planned or that anyone had a plan for my life. It could be a terrible plan, couldn't it? There's no assumption that it's a great plan. So much better to think that life just unfolds as we live it, and that everything we do kind of creates that path one step at a time in front of us.
So I believe that, but not in an individualistic sense. I believe it in a collective sense. So I don't believe necessarily that God has every single step of our lives mapped out for us, but rather that God has a purpose for all of us to live in communion with God and the world around us. The people, creation, the plants, the animals, the world. And so I find my place in that by living into that and by joining in that story for the betterment of the world around me.
Personally, I don't think there is a divine plan for everyone. I think we have choices and we might make a choice and go this way, but for me that doesn't mean that which I understand to be God is any less with me then than if I'd gone the other way. And sometimes in my work with people who are grieving a tragedy, they have experienced family members and friends say, oh, well, of course, you know, it was God's will. And I think, wow, how does that make sense? Why would the divine being that I call God, who I believe is love, whose essential nature is love, why would God or anybody want that child to die slowly and horribly from cancer, or for that woman to fall from a tree and become horrifically injured? You know, so I don't think there is a plan in that kind of way. I guess I prefer to think of we are gifted with life and none of us know how long we've got. And so sometimes we think, well, I'm just going to work furiously here so that I can really live there, but we don't know if we'll ever live there. I think one of the challenges is to be fully present to the now and to make the most of now, the people in our lives now. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have some goals, you know, to work towards. That's entirely right. When they become the be-all and end-all at the expense of being present to what is gifted to us now, that becomes, I think, really problematic. So, yeah, I don't think there is an individual plan, But I believe and I think that there is this sense of we've been launched into a journey and an adventure, and that which gifts us with life is with us every step of the way, every breath, every heartbeat.
So some people have a spirituality that helps them in this regard. Not to hand over responsibility to some sky person, but to see how a so-called plan might actually be a kind of intention for life, a direction of ethically how to do stuff, or at least how to try. Listen to these peeps.
The only plan that I personally believe is, for me, is to love God with everything that I have and to love my neighbour as myself. And to think about anything else or in any other way is just going to tie me up in knots.
Oh, a plan for everyone. Goodness me. Yes, I do think there is a plan for everyone, and I think that that plan for every human being is to live a life of love and connection, not only with other human beings, but in the fullness of our world, meaning that we connect with nature, we have a responsibility to care for the earth. I think the plan is that we respond to each other with love and kindness. Sometimes that can be really challenging. People get deeply hurt. People can behave in really destructive ways towards us. And then it draws on every ounce of everything that is human within us to respond in ways that enable us to find forgiveness and a pathway forward. It doesn't mean that we ever have to condone whatever it was, the destructive thing that was done to us or against us. However, I think that the plan is that we choose a loving response. And that isn't just in the moment, that is a lifetime's calling to learn to live in love, not only with the people that we find easy to get on with, but with everyone that we encounter. And in that way, we're responding to people with the dignity and the respect that they are due because they are fellow human beings. And it is also a way of perhaps respecting our own selves as well and giving us the best opportunities for moving forward in meaningful ways.
I actually believe there's no plan for anyone. And that's again, something that actually causes us a great deal of anxiety. When things are going well, it's really nice to think that it's all part of a plan, either the plan of the divine or the universe's plan for us, so that we're actually on track, and there's a reason why it's all going so well. It's because it's all planned for us. But I actually think that there is no plan because the future doesn't exist. The future is what we are in the process of making now. And because we have free will, we have agency, we make choices good and bad, and we do a whole lot of stuff that just is, if you like, has consequences we don't understand, then there is no way that the future can be planned. Every small action has a consequence and a flow on that means that there's this huge tapestry of stuff happening, and the future is just this coming out of this chaos.
No, I don't believe that there is a plan for everyone. I actually don't think there's a plan for anyone. I mean, one way to put it is that life itself is planning. And I'm thinking of here planning in terms of actually the etymology of the word plan, which means to sketch. To plan something is to sketch something. And I think that we continually sketch and re-sketch oneself all the time. But I don't think there's anyone or anything out there that's ultimately planning the course of anyone's life. I think that we as individuals and we as human communities are the ones who kind of sketch and continually revise the sketches of what it means to be individuals. And I think that actually what is more helpful is the understanding that one's life, both individual and communal, is actually open to revision and resketching. That when you try to kind of plan a life, whether it's one's own or someone else's, in ink, I think things get suffocating pretty fast. And so it's more helpful to realize that life is nothing more than a sketch. and a sketch that can always be revised.
In the sense that there's a meaning and a purpose for every person, yes, I think so. I think that there's something that is particular to our gifts and skills and experiences that we contribute that helps us grow as a person and helps the wider world be a better place in some way. So yes, I think there is that for each person, but a plan that says that in 2025 you'll be doing this and in 2030 you'll be doing that, something that somebody who reads your palm might be able to say to you, I'm not sure about that. In fact, I'm pretty sure that that's not the case, but I do think that there is an overall way for us in our lives.
Actually, no, I don't believe that there is this immovable plan for everyone's life. I don't believe that the universe or God or whatever word you want to use for it has a plan that is set in stone for everybody. Because that would mean that my choices are meaningless, that I don't have a choice. I really believe that my choices are my choices and they do have meaning, but it's not set in stone. I do have the choice to make my own decisions and find my own way in this life.
Wow, I guess I'm surprised in a way. It's kind of a trope or meme to have Christian types going on about God's plan for each person. So to hear all of these people basically suggesting they don't think there are individualised plans for each person, because that would negate your own choices, well, that's definitely big. I didn't see that coming. But that's only part one, right? Or point one anyway. The second big deal to me is the idea that while there may not be individualised map paths laid out to follow, there may be a more general purpose for humans that a person's spirituality might be a resource for. So a Buddhist might say, there's no plan for me, but my faith says that the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path is the map of purpose that I strive to follow. Or a Christian might opt for the love your neighbour, and God as well purpose. Or a Jedi might go, do or do not, there is no try. And that's not just because I wanted to have a crack at a bad Yoda impression. That's all very different from how you hear people say it was meant to be, or everything happens for a reason, especially when something bad has happened. Anyway, so this thing called purpose, it could be another name for plan. We made a bunch of videos about that back in Theme 3. Or maybe there are some resources out there to help us with thinking about tomorrow in some of the world's established spiritualities. No one said you can't pick and choose. It's fun. Okay, so that's it for Theme 5, tomorrow. I'll leave you with some peeps wondering about tomorrow, the future, to finish up. Do you feel hopeful about the future?
I suppose cautiously optimistic more than anything. Obviously there's a lot of challenges for life in general, but I think, if we put the work in, we can come to some kind of better future.
Sometimes there's a lot of scary news and there's stuff going on in the world, the climate is changing, there's conflict globally, and often that doesn't give me much optimism, but I always have hope. Even when the facts look grim, I don't lose my hope in what is possible.
What does the future hold for you?
Look, I'm a very hopeful person. I don't know. And the joy of it is I believe that it will be good. I also think it'll be challenging. Life isn't easy and there's lots of ups and downs, but we grow with that journey.
Yeah, so if I were to think of an image about a helpful way of thinking about relating to tomorrow or the idea of the future, I often think about one of my favorite images in the writings of Søren Kierkegaard, who's a 19th century thinker. He wrote a lot about time and about being in time and about how to relate to tomorrow and the future. And one of the images that he uses is of rowing a boat. And when you row a boat, at least in Kierkegaard's conception of it, your back is facing in the direction that you're going. So you're rowing a boat and you're actually facing backwards, but you don't see where you're going. And it's associated with one of his famous phrases that that life is understood backwards, but it's lived forwards. And this idea that actually to move forwards in life, to relate to tomorrow, you have to turn your back to it. You have to cease to be obsessed with knowing what's coming, and you have to let tomorrow be unknown and focused on what you're doing in the present. And it's actually focused on that moment of rowing is actually what allows you to travel into the future without debilitating anxiety. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's actually
Awesome.
That will be a lovely way to finish that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice
That's a
little
beautiful
conclusion. Oh, excellent. Thank you very much for
There you go.